about, and unfortunately in today's day and age, and that's surprise medical billing. Most people don't really think about surprise medical billing when it comes to the Department of Veterans Affairs. It's not intuitive to think about. Before I go on and explain a little bit about the legislation, I wanted to invite up two of our folks here that have had, unfortunately, experience with what can happen with surprise medical billing and the Department of Veterans Affairs, and just explain a little bit. I think their stories tell it really better than what I could explain it. And so I just have to, Preston, if you want to come up a minute, maybe you could just share a little bit about what you experienced with your brother.
Yeah, I think
it would help explain it.
Thank you, sir. How you doing? My name is Creston Lane, and I'm a veteran here. And my brother is a disabled veteran as well, and he lives over on the other coast of Florida. But he just recently, as of yesterday, got out of the hospital. And one of the biggest concerns he didn't have the concern, but I did, was to make sure that the Veteran Administration was aware that he was in a civilian hospital, and to make sure he wouldn't get billed. So that was an overriding concern for him and his girlfriend at the time. He had a head bleed at the time, so he was unable to, be aware of what was going on so much. And so after that, he got discharged, and he went back in again, and the same problem again. And so the concern that he had was, for me, very frustrating, because I had to try to help him with the situation. Not frustrating because I helped him, but because of the situation, I was having to concern myself with who was going to pay for the bill versus, having concern about him only. And that for me was the most, again, frustrating part. And so this bill, I hope will help that and address that. And all veterans should never have to worry about when they're in a incapacitated situation, or even in general, if they had to go there, then they should have to not worry about it until they get discharged. And so that's all I have. Thank you.
So the situation that Creston and his brother ran into was under Department of Veterans Affairs policy and guidelines. If you have an emergency, and common sense says if you have an emergency, you go to the closest emergency room outside of the West Palm Beach VA or any other VA hospital that might be close to you. Within 72 hours of when you are starting that emergency, you need to let the Department of Veterans Affairs know that you're in an outside facility. Well, that can be very difficult if you're incapacitated, or if the people that are with you, the family members or the friends, have no idea that there's VA policy that you have to let the VA know within 72 hours. So if you went in at 6 p.m. and you're incapacitated, it doesn't matter, the clock is ticking. And by 6 a.m. you're 12 hours in, and if you don't let them know within 72 hours, you're going to receive that bill instead of the Department of Veterans Affairs doing what they're supposed to do, which is pay for that medical care that all of our veterans earned by their service to the United States of America and our people in our communities. So there's another story that I want to have shared here. Ronnie, if you wouldn't mind coming up sharing just briefly what she experienced with her husband, rest in peace.
Yes. My husband got very ill and went to emergency surgery in 2019. And they did cover it because it was an automatic emergency. And then a year later, he got sick again, and all of our appointments at the West Palm Beach offices, because of the COVID, we could not go. They canceled all of them. And then when he got sick, we had no other choice but to continue on with the doctors that he had had with his illness in 2019. And as a consequence, with the emotional upheaval that I was going through, as well as trying to take care of my mother-in-law, and I didn't even think about calling. It wasn't even in my mind. And we received a little over $10,000 that we paid out of our own pocket. And it was all because we did not call. And when you're in emotional turmoil, you don't think about things like that. You think about the person you love.
Thank you, Ronnie. Appreciate it. So again, just to recap what this legislation is about, right now under Department of Veterans Affairs policy, if you have a medical emergency and you have to be seen outside of the VA, you have 72 hours to alert the VA that you are being seen outside of the VA. That's a big problem because within 72 hours you may be incapacitated, you may be in a state that they can't understand you, you may be having something going on that your family has no idea. They need to let the Department of Veterans Affairs know within that time period. We would change that statutory requirement to 72 hours after discharge that you need to alert the Department of Veterans Affairs to the emergency that you've had, and this would help to end the surprise medical billing that we have going on with our veterans in so many cases, not just in our community but also around the country. And the other point that I would make on this as well is for our office, and I have to believe for offices around the country, congressional offices around the country, I always tell people, bring us your issues, bring us your problems, because when we hear from the community about things like this and so many other things, it helps drive legislation. If we don't have cases like this brought into us, hey representative, can you help us with this surprise medical billing from the VA? Then we may not even know that there needs to be legislation written to help address that problem and fix that problem, and how many the scope of people that it's actually affecting. So it is a very big deal to have individuals come in and share the problems that they're having with federal agencies, because chances are good it affects more than just themselves, and by letting us know, they're going to have an opportunity to help more than just themselves but other people around the community and possibly even across the country. And I think that's all something that we can all rally around, is trying to reach out there and help people just outside of ourselves. So in that, I don't know if there's any questions, but I'm happy to answer.
With this bill, what's next moving forward?
So this piece of legislation will go through the VA committee in the House of Representatives. We will seek to find a partner on the Senate side of it, and I don't think it'll be difficult. It's very common sense legislation. Nobody wants to see our veterans get surprise billing. This is something that passed a few years ago. The VA Mission Act was a piece of legislation that passed a few years ago that wanted to address some of the things like this, but didn't. This needs to be addressed. People recognize it, and I think it will be easy to get a number of folks on it to support. Very good. All right. Well, veterans, I thank you all for your service, and I love you all, and I thank you for the service of your family. And I don't know if there's anything else.
We love you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, we do.
Thank you all for taking the time today.
Good deal. Good to see you. What a pleasure, sir.
Thank you, Congressman.
Mayor,
Thank you so much.
good to see you, ma'am.
Good to see you too.
All right.